Good afternoon. I got back up now, so I good. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, F&M supporters, good afternoon. Almost 3 years ago, the Bahamian people elected a new government. The Free National Movement administration was sent home. Sadly, for Bahamians everywhere, the last 3 years have been profoundly uninspiring and disappointing. We have seen crises all over. A crisis in crime, particularly involving murder. We have had a healthcare crisis with just dismal delivery of healthcare services all across the country, but particularly in our acute care facilities. We have seen profound levels of secrecy involving government finances, and there has been an historic level of no-bid contracts. We have a cost of living crisis. This administration has refused to advance principles of transparency by blocking freedom of information and fiscal accountability. Say they ain't got no appetite for that. We have seen historic levels of taxation and wasteful spending. You need only go to the Blueprint for Change, where it outlines all the promises and commitments that have not been kept, the promises and commitments that have been broken to date, and confirms that the PLP will say anything and do anything to get elected. Since September 2021, we in the Free National Movement have been rebuilding this political movement, island by island, community by community. A new leadership team led by Michael Clifton Pintard was recently reaffirmed at our convention 2024. And our party's membership has confirmed that he will lead the Free National Movement into election in 2026 or sooner. I am pleased to serve this organization as our national chairman. And as we prepare for the upcoming general elections, our Free National Movement Party has commenced the training of aspiring candidates through our vigorous candidates training workshops. I want to single out a few people at the peril of missing a few, but I'd like to say thank you to Inga Boswick, to Gadville McDonald, and to Nicole Martin, and others and their team for the work that they have done thus far. Many, many months ago, we convened a training course for the first cohort, the first group of aspiring candidates, and we had some 50 persons, men and women, young and not so young, seasoned and novice politicians who participated in a robust series of interactive sessions on history, principles of the Free National Movement, principles of governance, the role and function of members of parliament, cabinet procedure and policy, the civil service, the legislative process, campaign and political office financing, governance, and politics. We also covered election law and other topics, facilitated by individuals with bona fide credentials who have an intimate knowledge and experience of the topics covered. The topics were well received. Our goal is to ensure that any candidate chosen to carry the banner of the Free National Movement into election and ultimately into the House of Assembly as the next elected government would be thoroughly prepared for the enormous opportunity, responsibility, and honor of representing the Bahamian people. The Free National Movement aims and objectives are to elect, establish, and maintain a government which will truly reflect the political, social, cultural, and economic aspirations of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We are fundamentally bound to affirm and preserve the principles of democratic government and to put into effect those programs that we outline in our platform. We believe in the development of local government. We have a respect for our Constitution and our laws and the requirement to safeguard freedom and human rights for all. We believe that we should secure, strengthen, and broaden a sound economic base with broad participation, but also to ensure a caring, compassionate, honest government with accountability, high ethical standards, and dedicated, efficient service to public life. As I mentioned, some 50 persons participated in that first session. We anticipate at least that number in the second session, which will be the final cohort of potential candidates. And while many persons have self-identified, we are pleased to issue a national invitation to anyone who is constitutionally eligible to serve in the House of Assembly. I refer you to Article 46 of the Constitution. You have to be 25 years of age. There are some financial requirements, some nationality requirements, etc. We recently celebrated the anniversary of deliverance on August 19th. You may recall that this country has celebrated a number of milestones. August 19th, 1992, or Deliverance Day, like the acquisition of majority rule, women's suffrage, and independence, were major landmarks in our history, in our development. But that day in particular saw the resetting of trajectory of the Bahamas and the ushering in of a level of transparency dubbed Government in the Sunshine, because that is who we are. As the Bahamas is once again badly in need of a reset, we look forward to the conclusion of this process to select those patriotic men and women who seek to lead the Bahamas even further upward and onward. And so if you love this country and you wish to join a team to further transform and uplift this country, for all Bahamians to be engaged and to benefit, we invite you to join us. When we work together, we will indeed usher in unstoppable change. Thank you very much. Are there any questions at all?
Dr. Sanders, are current or former pre-national movement members of Parliament required to take part in training as well?
Every single potential candidate, every single aspiring candidate, inclusive of the member for Marco City, inclusive of the member for St. Barnabas, all of the incumbents are required to take the candidates training.
How do you say to those pundits and political observers who said there are certain people who won't get a party nomination ahead of the next general election?
Well, you know, one of the favorite pastimes of Bahamians is politics. Politics, Junkanoo, and some other things. And so I am not going to spend a whole lot of time dealing with the comments of the pundits, because the pundits will say whatever pundits say. There is a process by which the Free National Movement will select the 39 candidates, or more, depending on what happens after the Boundaries Commission meets. But there is a process. Every aspiring candidate will be required to have completed the candidates training course. They will then be vetted by local and international agencies to determine their fitness to serve in the House of Assembly and to carry the Free National Movement's banner. The Executive Committee of the Free National Movement serves as the candidate selection committee. That Executive Committee is chaired by our leader, Michael Pintard. A number of persons were recently elected to serve on the executive, and a number of persons are constitutionally appointed by the leader. The final step of the process, after vetting, after consideration by the executive committee, will be ratification by the Central Council of the Free National Movement. That is the process. Now, we have made it very clear that the constituency associations will have considerable input into who is chosen as a candidate. But at this point, we are in the process of having persons go through the required training, and nobody has been selected as a candidate for the Free National Movement.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sands. Can you say whether incumbents have indicated already they do not plan to run, and if so, how many?
Nobody has indicated to me that they do not plan to run.
And excuse me if you already said it, but can you give us a timeline when you expect to finalize these candidates?
Well, this training program is anticipated to last between 8 to 10 weeks, and we are going to begin the process of candidate selection, consideration, vetting, etc. So we're off to the races.
Good evening, Dr. Sands. I'm representing us. You said that you've already had a cohort of 50 prospective candidates attending these training sessions. Has Dr. Minnis attended one of the training sessions, or has he indicated that he will attend one?
Could you repeat the question? I was distracted.
The question is, has Dr. Minnis attended one of these training sessions, or has he indicated that he will attend one?
We have a strict non-disclosure approach, and so I am not minded to tell you who has participated to date, nor am I likely to tell you. Understand that we are dealing with a very spiteful and vindictive administration, and there are persons who could lose their job, people who would find themselves victimized, and so I'm not going to go down this slippery slope.
I just want to switch gears a little bit related to, as we talk about transparency, and I know that Mr. Pickard challenged the PLP to be disclosing their donor list. When I was asked, Mr. Mitchell deflected and said that is not the issue, is whether Mr. Pickard holds water for the Port Authority. What do you say that he's not being transparent and he's, in a way, changed his tone to the argument Mr. Davis said when he first asked that question to GB?
You know, this is gamesmanship at its finest. The Progressive Liberal Party, the government that is currently contracted to serve the people of the Bahamas, is failing miserably. They would like nothing but to change the narrative. And so they create all manner of red herrings. I believe that Mr. Pintard answered the question appropriately. I believe that he answered the question honestly. We have nothing at all to hide. Mr. Mitchell has said, contrary to what is written in the Blueprint for Change, that the PLP has no appetite for campaign reform, despite the fact that it's published in that document. But we realize that that document is nothing more than rubbish, because very little of it has directed their behavior over the last 3 years.
On that point, he said that his personal views, because neither side can be on the self-disclosure in this country. Have you recalled that he, issues with back and forth, and are the academics still on the same accord with disclosure?
Disclosure of?
Campaign finance.
No, I think the leader was very explicit in his commentary. We have nothing to hide. Absolutely nothing to hide. And I believe that the Bahamian people want to see freedom of information. They want to see it not only legislated but enacted. Last year, I made it very clear. Don't hold your breath. It ain't going to happen. They're not interested in information being available to the public that pays taxes and that are basically the bosses of this country. They are not interested in moving forward a number of progressive pieces of legislation. They'll talk about it. And the most recent issue where the chairman / minister, who ought not have a personal opinion when he is speaking for the government, said that they ain't on that run when it comes to campaign reform. Why put it in your blueprint for change unless you intended to bamboozle or hoodwink the public?
Yes, sir. Jose, again, from my News. The government getting ready for its candidacy training, and this comes...
Round 2.
Yes, sir. This comes just, 2-3 months after you guys held your convention back in June. And at that convention, a lot of emphasis was placed on unity, restoring the unity and the healing process. What's that been like several weeks later?
We are focused on preparing, by the grace of God and the support of the Bahamian people, to lead this country after the outcome of the next general election. Our focus now has been to put some meat on the bones. So people want to know, well, what will an FNM-led, a Pintard-led administration look like? What types of policies will you have? And so our leader has given some insight into banking reform. We have talked about different approaches to crime. We have a number of working groups and focus groups that meet on a regular basis to craft our platform. And unlike the PLP, we believe that our word should be our bond, that we should be held accountable for what we promise. Now, if you look at successive FNM administrations, you can grade how well we have done with each administration relative to the promises, the commitments made in our manifesto. But we look at that manifesto as a contract. It's not just something to put some pretty words down that sound good so that you can swing the public. And so as we prepare for election 2026 or 2025 or whenever this administration decides they want to hold an election, what you see in the FNM platform will be our bond, our commitment, our manifesto, our promise to the people of the Bahamas. So you'll know what you're getting.
We just celebrated 5 years of the non-fault Hurricane Dorian. I know that when in opposition, Mr. Davis said he would have an inquiry either by outside investigators or a commission. He said it probably was out last year, but we haven't had any word as of yet. Is that something the FNM would push for a commission into and ask into the people?
I think, as we memorialize the suffering and loss of that tragic event that impacted the entire country, but most particularly Abaco and Grand Bahama, with the huge number of families and persons affected, that we still have not yet gotten closure. It is never too late to do the right thing. And I believe that what we ought to do is to seek to accomplish some closure. There are still people who do not know what has happened to their loved ones. It is a sad, sad thing to see the unfortunate development with the shelter in Abaco. A shelter that should have been completed in 2021, that had a budget of $1.8 million that ballooned to some $5 million, still not completed. The discussion yesterday after the collapse of the structure became almost farcical, that, well, it wasn't really a roof, it was just some trusses or some other components of a roof. I think we've heard that nonsense before. And sadly, as we look at the timing of that unfortunate event, we can only ask whether the Bahamian people have indeed been getting value for money, and whether or not this administration has taken seriously its obligation as it relates to dealing in a sensitive and solemn way with the serious suffering that the people in Abaco have endured, the people in Grand Bahama have endured. We have not seen any great movement towards roof repairs, home repairs, for reestablishing normalcy in either of those island communities.
Are you surprised that 5 years later some people are still living in domes in Spring City?
Am I surprised with this administration? No. Should we be disappointed? We should. What we have seen has been an administration whose priorities are so distorted, so peculiar, that they would rather spend money on no-bid contracts, on travel, on parties, etc., than to deal with the issues facing Bahamians. I started this presentation today referring to the crises that we have in this country. When you can watch the Princess Margaret Hospital underwater, when you can see serious challenges with being able to access healthy food, but this administration decides that they want to go spend a couple $100,000 on this, a couple $1 million on that, and so on. The priorities have nothing to do with the people who they claim to be concerned about. And so, as this invitation goes out to young men and not so young men, to young women and not so young women, to persons who would like to join a progressive team to make this country better, to get back on track. The Free National Movement was founded out of dissent from a progressive liberal party that had lost its way. The metaphor, the similarity of then, 1967, 1968, all the way to the emergence of the Free National Movement in 1971, is very similar to how things are now. God, we need unstoppable change. Now, if you're interested and you want to join the Free National Movement, I can give you the direct answers to that. But, you know, the fellas that sell chicken won't tell you the formula for their chicken. The people that sell that brown fluid in a red can, they won't tell you the formula for success. The Free National Movement is not going to telegraph on national TV the formula that we want to pick. But I believe that a Pintard-led administration will reflect the composition of this country, the aspirations of this country. And by definition, there will be young people and not so young, seasoned people and novices, men and women, persons from the family islands, people from different walks of life. I believe that ultimately that will give us the best possible team. But the specific formula, wait and see.
Thank you. Dr. Saunders, just want to go back to the campaign finance reform. The party leader, they challenged the Progressive Party to lay out their donors, their campaign donors. The question is, why not the EFNM do it just independently? Has there been a discussion just to lay out your donors on the table?
Sure, but I mean, why? Why? Is that certainly something that we would do just out of the blue? That bear in mind that if we are serious about moving this thing forward in the vacuum of a legislative formula, then there are some challenges to doing that. What the leader has made very clear is that he is prepared to do it, but not in isolation. You know, I think it's quite important to understand that this administration, probably meaning the Progressive Liberal Party, probably has far more to lose. They are the party of quid pro quo. They are the party of no bid contracts. They are the party of kickbacks. And so when you ask the question as to who has donated to the PLP in the lead up to the 2021 election, and how many of them have gotten $1 million contracts, I believe that it would be a very revealing story.
He's out that information that will hasten the government to do the same.
I don't think that the simple answer is no. The more complex answer is, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully. We have seen with this administration a level of gangsterism that has not been seen for decades. And the Bahamian people should call it what it is. It's gangsterism.
On that note, we thank the media for joining us. We thank FNF for joining us.